Eric starts his day in 3D Experience SolidWorks. And he's going to go over to the 3D Experience pane here. And he's a busy guy, but he's just going to go to the top of his to-do list. It says model new rod end component. And he can see only these tasks that are actually assigned to him. So he knows that this is all work that he has to do. So if he opens it up, he can get a description for what he needs to do. He needs to make a new component. He can move it into work to let everybody know that he's working on this. And there's already an attached deliverable. So all the data he needs to get started is right inside of this task, which he can open right into 3D Experience SolidWorks. So after this loads, it's apparent that, there is a lot of work to be done. So he could toggle to a custom display state. And this way he can get a closer look. So it's important to note that even in this custom display state that all of the mates are actually maintained so we can move around that assembly. Even though those physical components aren't actually shown, those mates are maintained. So we're going to go ahead and create a new part. It's very easy to start by selecting a sketch plane that we want to actually draw on, and we could begin a new sketch. So right away, Eric can jump into his favorite tools. So these are mouse gestures, and they're totally customizable to Eric's liking. And it's important to note that they change depending on which environment he's working in. If he's working in an assembly, he'll get a completely different set of mouse gestures. Same with drawings. But in this case, he's going to opt to use this center point slot, and he's going to begin to draw the sketch. It's just a rough napkin sketch. So as he toggles between his different sketch entities that he wants to use, or his sketch tools that he wants to use, you go ahead and just get a rough outline, a rough shape of the top part of this component. From here, he'll go ahead and it's going to go ahead and just add a dimension. So you'll notice that there's a quick flash right there. And what all that
What
is
was that?
just the actual dimension is just scaling everything else that he drew, which is super important. We don't want, if we didn't draw this at the right scale initially, it's fine. Now it's all to scale, and we can continue adding those dimensions. So you'll notice as we add these dimensions, more and more of this is turning from blue to black, which just means that it's becoming fully defined.
Ah,
We
that makes
have
sense.
two circles here, but I only need to add one dimension because I could select both of them and this toolbar will come up and I have the option to select and make them equal to each other. And from this very same pop-up menu, seems how I'm done with this sketch, you could see it's entirely black. I can go ahead and I could hit the extrude command to bring this into 3D. So it's just a matter at this point of selecting the shapes that I want to actually extrude or the contours. And we can actually go ahead and specify the length of the extrude. And then I'll also choose an end condition. There are a lot of different options here, but for our purposes today, we want to maintain a mid-plane symmetry so that way half of the material is added on one side of the sketch and half the material is added on the other side. So now we can kind of twist our view a little bit. We got to add a couple fillets. Just a matter of clicking an edge here. It's pretty simple. Also get the chamfer option. We can update the radius of that fillet right in the graphics area and pick up that hidden edge without having to reorient our model. So we can also grab a different orientation by hitting the space bar, and I can go to the top plane very easily, where I could start another sketch. This time we want to create a cut that's going to be helpful to attach the links that will actuate the arms of the homaltro. So it's very easy. Again, we're just going to get this all defined. And then we'll go ahead and make an extrude cut. Now, this is already 40 millimeters. It's actually saved in the dialog box from last time. So actually all I need to do is hit the green check. And you could see that all of the material is now going to be removed 40 millimeters. But it's going to be tough to machine all the way down to that cut. So we'll add some fillets to help out with that. Again, updating that radius and selecting the hidden edge. So Eric's pretty happy with this top half. I think it's now time to focus on the actual shaft itself. So to do this, Eric, as we see, has the option to select not only planes, but faces, planar faces that we can then draw sketches on to then turn into extrudes.
Wow, John, it looks like you barely ever leave the graphics area. Are you afraid of toolbars or something?
Now, I mean, I'm not afraid of toolbars, but like, I'm kind of afraid of toolbars. No, but it's just so much easier just to keep your mouse right in the graphics area. And this is why all these little pop-ups are really helpful and go a long way into really helping us improve the design. And, we're going to see one more example of that here, because when we actually extrude it, oop, we actually go ahead and extrude this.
That's all right. Little technical
Yeah.
difficulties never killed anyone.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, now while I get this set up real quick, maybe we'll go ahead
Yeah, I'm gonna
and we
check the
will.
chat, John. Why don't you fix this up? I'm gonna just check out the chat and just take a couple questions for
Yeah.
now. Um, so yeah, it looks like we have a couple. All right, so here's a good question. Um, Yeah, so which software is important for the design department? So in this particular demonstration, we're using 3D Experience SolidWorks, but I mean, if you're talking about CAD, then yes, that's going to be SolidWorks. Whichever version of SolidWorks you plan to use. But if you're talking about collaborative design, that's when products like Collaborative Industry Innovator really shine in allowing you to just work with others on your team and being able to point out issues. We haven't gotten that far just yet, but I'm sure we're going to get back on track in just another couple moments here. Um,
Yeah, we should be good to go, back up and running. So whenever you're ready.
all right, yeah, let's do it, John.
All right, let's jump
Back
back
on
in.
track.
All right, so yeah, as we could see in the graphics area here now, instead of actually changing the diameter by typing it in, we can actually just drag this to go ahead and update that. And you see there's a little rule on the side. We can just snap that right into the dimension, hit the enter key, and look at that. There's another way to actually extrude. We can easily add a chamfer,
Nice.
but we already did that before. But what's really cool here up next is the actual hole wizard itself, because I want to create a nice a specialty hole here. So I want a countersink hole. So I'm going to use Hole Wizard. We could model it, but I'm actually not going to model it. So this is Hole Wizard. So anytime you want to actually create, custom holes, you can go ahead and do this right from here. So counter bore, countersink, tapped holes, things of that nature that you could model in SolidWorks, right? But why not just use the library that's available to us? And in this case, I have the end condition of up to surface in there. So it's basically, I just want to tell SolidWorks when I want this hole to actually end, and I just want it to last the entire length of the thread. So I could just easily select that top face right there.
Oh, and it's going to cut right up to the face. That's really
Yeah,
handy. So you said any of like your standard hole sizes and like kind of denominations. You said counterbores, countersinks.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also important to note that I could have like changed the size. I just kind of had those preloaded in there already with the size that I wanted. So the
Oh, this is
last thing I guess we really need to do, the last big change, is just adding a spot for our retaining ring to go. And because we've already seen a lot of these features, we'll just kind of skip over them a little bit. And then it just a simple revolve cut, and that is added. So some finishing touches, well, we could add a couple chamfers here, but we might find out a little bit later that Megan might not like chamfers, but we'll kind of circle back to that one a little bit later. But Eric's going to go ahead and add a material, so he has an entire material library at his fingertips. So not only does this change the way it actually looks, but it also changes the physical properties. So if one of his colleagues wanted to go ahead and do a structural simulation down the road to verify, he could do that as well. So Eric will find the steel of his liking, and he can go ahead and apply the settings. And look at that, it updates right away. But on second thought, look at this. I think
It
it's a
looks a
little bit
little
long
long.
here, the top
Yeah.
part. So should Eric be concerned, Gian, about this affecting the downstream features? I
Hey,
mean,
I don't know. I'm just Megan. I don't touch CAD. That's your job.
that's true. Yeah, well, Eric's not going to be concerned because all he has to do is click on a face here, and he can just easily update the dimension change. And again, everything updates, so he doesn't have to worry about affecting anything downstream.
Wow, nothing broke. That's
Yeah.
impressive, Eric.
What was that?
Said nothing broke. It's pretty impressive, Eric.
I know, nothing broke. So now he'll go ahead and save this. And he has a few different options when he presses save with options. So I'll name it new rod end. Um, the first option that he has is to release the reservation after with after the save. And what that is, if he wanted to allow his other colleagues to go ahead and use the data, he could do that as well. So he'll just go ahead and save the component, but he doesn't want to check that box because, well, he's still working on the component. He's going to toggle into the window and watch as he drags and drops this into the assembly. I mean, that's pretty cool. It automatically adds a concentric mate.
Oh,
And
wow.
obviously this isn't the right direction, so, well, it's no issue. It just flips the mate around and press the green check. So, I mean, adding mates is just super simple. So if you wanted these two faces to touch, just select the two faces and add a coincident mate. It's really that simple. But obviously, I don't think this looks quite, as where it needs to be, right? There's still some missing components. And at
Yeah, how
any
does that
time,
thing
if
move
Eric wanted to, he
around?
could just move it around
Hmm.
and you could actually see how this would behave. And, he's happy with that behavior. But yeah, we got a lot of work to do on this part still. But we won't be modeling any more parts. There is, however, the link that we need on the 3D Experience platform that's saved for us. So we'll go ahead into the 3D Experience pane, and I'm just going to literally search for the link that I need. I do get a decent amount of search options, but I suspect that this is the one. I suspect that this is the one that Eric needs. And if I wanted to verify that, I could actually just open up an interactive preview where I can actually manipulate the model to make 100% certain that this is the actual link that I need. And then I can insert it with a simple drag and drop. It's just a matter of adding the mates like we did before. So we're going to fast forward through this one a little bit as well. But even so, there's still a pin. And because this isn't a full design demo, we have one in the other window. But watch as we drag and drop between all of these different holes. So we can really just choose which hole we want to drop this pin in, and it is going to add the mate automatically. So it saves us an absolute ton of time.
So just a concentric made it added?
Actually, it added the coincident mate as well, that you
Wow.
would need. So two mates in one, right?
Yeah, that's a nice time saver there.
Absolutely. And you know what? Here's another plus, I guess, that we can get out of this. So we need to actually have a retaining ring at the bottom of this pin.
Right. Yeah, you got to keep it in
So
there.
what Eric's actually going to use is Toolbox, which is, fairly new to 3D Experience SolidWorks. So it's pretty cool. For those of you who aren't familiar with Toolbox, it's just a bunch of fasteners, like you could see O-rings, retaining rings, bolt screws that you have access to. And it's cool enough that you have access to all of these tools or all of these fasteners. But what's even cooler is when Eric chooses the retaining ring that he actually wants, he could simply drag it over any of these cylindrical surfaces and it's automatically going to resize to fit the actual circumference of the circle that or diameter of this circle that he's working with. So isn't that pretty cool?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But that was just one pin, John. I think I see a couple more holes there. Are you gonna
Yeah,
have to do this whole
yeah.
thing again?
You know, I would think, that might be an issue, but here's the thing. All Eric has to do is just give it a simple window select. And again, he's going to pull up his mouse gestures. As we said before, they're going to be completely different now. He's going to use a copy with mates tool. And this copy with mates tool allows us to take all of both of those components and just select faces to place them where we want. So for example, Eric's going to click a cylindrical face over there. Then I'll go ahead and click the top face and boom, puts it right into place. If you want to see that again,
Yeah.
let's take a look at it. So we'll go ahead and hit the cylindrical face and then click the top face again. And I know what you're thinking, Gian.
Yeah,
They're
those.
just a little bit too long, right?
Yep,
I
definitely.
must have read your mind. Well, luckily, it's just a matter of clicking the faces, and this particular pin has configurations. So we'll go ahead and just choose from the list of configurations to size them perfectly in a matter of seconds. And if we really want to look at it, we can even see like, hey, look at this. I mean, it. Would you agree, Gian? I think that resized it perfectly.
Yeah, it looks like that did the trick.
It did the trick, but here's the catch though. A one-arm homatro spreader is just not all that effective.
Yeah, probably
Um,
not going to save too many lives with that, no.
yeah, you can't save too many lives with that. So it's really just a matter of making a window select here, and then I'm going to use another one of my favorite features here. We're going to mirror all of those components by selecting one plane. And look at that. It did
Wow,
all of that work that we just did in a matter of seconds and just copied it over to the other side. And
that's
I
awesome.
know, I mean, it's if you're skeptical, here it is. Like just it moves around too. I mean, it's so cool. But
Wow.
he's pretty satisfied with his work at this point, and he just wants to toggle back to the display state so he can update the assembly or update the assembly, and Megan can get a nice view.
So John, does he have to like go search for this again and like add it to the task or something?
Yeah, that would be a pain, wouldn't it? But no, he doesn't have to do that. It automatically updates, so he simply has to drag it from in work into done. And now Megan's going to get a notification and she'll see attached the updated model that Eric's been working on the entire time. So,
I see. Oh, so because it was already attached to the task, so you don't have to do anything. That's pretty handy.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.